Can Riverboat Ron save the Washington Commanders and his job? And can Carson Wentz finally revive his career? But now we move over to the Washington Commanders. They finished last year 7-10. Here's what they did this offseason. Brought in quarterback Carson Wentz, guard Andrew Norwell, guard Trey Turner, wide receiver Jahan Dotson via the draft, defensive tackle Fedarian Mathis in the second round, running back Brian Robinson, who looks like he might be pushing for the starting gig already, safety Percy Butler in the fourth, and then quarterback Sam Howell, who's been playing really well in this preseason, so he's probably going to, who knows, between him and Heineke will be the backup. And then they also lost, unfortunately, Brandon Scherf, who had been there for a while, and then guard Eric Flowers, who kind of had a resurgence, quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick, who unfortunately that whole Fitzpatrick situation never really got to play out because he got injured last year. Tight end Ricky Seals-Jones, defensive tackle Matt Ioannidis, and safety Landon Collins. So, John, what are your expectations for the retooled Washington Commanders?
I feel like the Commanders are going to be very similar to what they were last year. I think they improved in some regards. They got worse in some regards. On offense, I like Carson Wentz, but I do wonder how much of an upgrade he's going to be from anybody else on the roster. I think that he's a very solid QB, but I don't think he's the biggest difference maker. So, like I said, I wonder how much of an improvement he really will be. I like Jahan Dotson. I thought they reached in the draft for picking him. All reports in camp are that he's having a great camp, and so we'll see the kind of impact he's able to make. I really like Brian Robinson out of Alabama. I think getting a running back in the third round is always great value. And from all reports, I'm really expecting him to pretty much overtake Antonio Gibson as the lead back in this room. I think it could still be a committee, so you're still going to see J.D. McKissick, who ended up re-signing, and you're still going to see Antonio Gibson get involved, but I wouldn't be shocked if Brian Robinson eventually takes the first and second down work for the most part. You lose Eric Flowers and Brandon Scherf, and those are two guards who are really good for Washington. Brandon Scherf, he's obviously been one of the best guards in the NFL for quite some time. And then Eric Flowers, as much as fans like to make fun of him for his time in New York, he had a bit of a career resurgence with Washington. And so I think that Andrew Norwell and Trey Turner are both good guards, but I think overall at the offensive line, they downgraded this offseason. I don't think it's massive, but I do think they downgraded. And so we'll see. I mean, they had a solid group. They, for the most part, replaced the guys they lost. I think that losing Matt Ioannidis and Landon Collins could show up a little bit in the defensive side of the ball because you just lose some of your depth along the defensive line. And Landon Collins, although he's a more limited safety in terms of the ways you can use him, very sure tackler, very solid player. And so now you're replacing him with Percy Butler in the fourth round, who could just have some inexperience. I believe they might have cut him. I think Troy Apke is no longer on the team as well. And so your safeties just could look very different. You have Cameron Curl and Bobby McCain, but once again, just very different. So we'll see. I'm also not the biggest Jamin Davis fan. I don't think you were either in last year's draft. We both thought JOK was better. And so I don't know. I think the key is really, can their defense step up and be what a lot of people expected them to be? They have a lot of talent on defense with Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, Montez Sweat, Chase Young, which Chase Young is currently dealing with an injury, and I believe he's on the PUP list, so he's not even ready to play as of right now. He's going to miss at least 4 weeks. But I think this defense is the thing that we're going to have to watch out for. I do like the playmakers they have on offense, but just as the whole offensive unit, outside of Terry McLaurin, I don't feel like there's anyone that really scares you. And so I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, I don't think they're worse, but I don't think they got that much better. And so I wouldn't be shocked if they just sort of have a very similar season to last year, maybe a game or two better. But for the most part, I still think they're third place in this division behind Philly and Dallas.
Yeah, I'm right with you. I'll try to keep this short. I think Wentz is obviously an upgrade over Heineke. Heineke was just not a consistent thrower at times. I think their passing game will be better, even with the addition of the wide receiver, Jahan Dotson. Hopefully my guy Dami Brown can, make some impact as well, and Curtis Samuel can stay healthy. And yeah, I have concerns about their defense as well. I mean, you already mentioned Chase Young out for some time. They were already dealing with depth issues. I think that was part of the reason why that whole front four was disappointing at the beginning of last year. Also, Jack Del Rio, their DC, just not a lot of creative concepts and on defense. So we'll see if he can get a little more creative this year, especially now. I would assume so. Now that you've lost Chase Young, you don't have that much talent up front. You may have to compensate with that lack of talent with some creativity. We'll see, though. But, yeah, I don't have many high hopes for this Washington football team. Obviously, they're dealing with issues off the field as well with their owner, and sometimes stuff like that can just affect the general culture and just attitude in the locker room. So we'll see, though, if they can right the ship. But I expect 7-10, 6-11. That sort of range. They may have a surprise or two here and there, but I'm not expecting a lot out of this team in terms of the wins production. So yeah, I think that they're going to be outside the playoff picture come December. So. So any Washington Commander fans are probably going to be upset at us, even though we do know one. But, I mean, all I got to say is I feel for y'all, but happens.